I think on the very thing we've just been talking about, if there was a significant investment that the industry was to make around because we have our studies and focus groups and yada yada, but if you could buy at a sector level, specialized to say for in the B2B space, people who are in banking, typically, this is what the data tells us as to how they use the various devices, and this is what they do. I think that would be incredibly helpful to have that rich information. Obviously, the media buying agencies, you do a lot of that research as well, but I think as builders, if you will, of multi-screen experiences, to have your own perspective and data, but it would only be relevant, it can't work if it's broad. It's really got to be at a targeted customer segment type or archetype. And I think that would be very interesting.
Anush, do you want to add to that? We're almost out of time. So.
Sure. I'll say, apart from the data, which I completely agree, and there's a lot more richer data that can be provided, I would say results. Right? At the end of the day, the results speak, and they're hand in hand. It's like a cat and mouse game, I guess, because the more data that is available to us, we can create stuff that will provide better results. So I think the more we see results and it working out, the more money will come in. I think the other aspect is, like I saw a stat somewhere up there that talks about place-based media and how the reach of place-based media is now as massive as television. The thing is, at one point in time, at any given point in time, it still isn't. So as we are thinking about putting stuff out there, the tap that which we kind of put the water through is still not big and universal. So I think that will still take time, and the more we kind of learn to kind of use results to drive that, will then.
You build what you can measure, right? And I think we really need to evolve the way we measure media. I think we're still using paradigms and systems of measurement that are 20, 30, 40 years old. And I think there's a certain comfort in that because they've been tested and they drive results, but we're going to build media that aligns with those measurement systems and drives the results that those systems generate. And I think we as an industry, we have so many conferences about measurement, and that's always a sign to me that there's a problem. The more conferences you have about something, we're wrestling as an industry with a solution. And I think the solution is we need to start taking risks, we need to start innovating and finding new paradigms and new systems for measurement, because otherwise we'll continue to, do things traditionally because we don't have the measurement systems that can tap into the newer form factors and
what needs to happen? What are the signs that that digital play space is growing up a bit?
Well, I think it was mentioned before, right? We're in a position where the measurement needs to kind of mature, and the ability to deliver via third party needs to be there. And once you have those two, you start seeing a medium mature, right? And I think that's what happened, for example, even in desktop video and things of that nature.
Sure.
And I think we're fundamentally lacking that at scale, right? I think you have pieces of it in place. Again, in an elevator, you have a camera, you can verify that somebody's there, and that's great. But how much of that is truly available and then scaled and brought together and centralized, right? So I think when you're looking at any medium looking to mature, the way that we can make it mature is obviously to be able to measure against it. Once you can measure against it, you can put it into your entire kind of funnel of how you figure out media investment and attribution,
Yep.
and then apply that and figure out where the dollars need to go. And if that's where your audience is, then you tend to kind of invest there. But until you have maturity in the measurement side, that's a gap.
That's a gap. Okay. How do you guys describe automation?
Absolutely. So I think there's definitely a big difference between programmatic and automation, to be clear about that. When we talk about television, we're really talking about workflow automation at its core for now, and that's a critical component to getting to those next steps of tying it all together. Programmatic has been the easiest way to get to that word automation in the earliest forms, and so we've seen great growth within our internal programmatic offerings. But we recently made some great partnerships with the likes of Wide Orbit and others to look at the way that we're looking at local broadcasts and building a better marketplace of inventory that we can access in a more cogent manner.
The first word is operating agencies, so give me one word.
Partner. Humongous.
WTF?
All right, couldn't resist. All right. Operating agencies.
Consultative.
Or put the risk.
Paycheck?
Automated.
Okay. Advertisers, one word.
Necessary. Brand.
Life.
Just hyphenated. Value exchangers.
Can I repeat necessary? 'Cause it's written there.
Sure.
God.
All right, I would say simplicity. Okay, media owners. Eric, one word.
Terrified.
Okay, media owners. Carl.
Robert Barron's.
All right.
I was going to say scared, so the same boat.
Okay.
Platforms.
Partners.
I missed the word again. What was
Media
it?
owners.
Media owners. Partners.
Okay, sellers. Google. One word. Google. Eric.
Hubris. Ubiquitous.
I need to use a lot of hyphens. I was going to say one trick pony.
Ooh.
All right, there you go.
I guess disruptors.
Big.
All right. Google.
Lame. Just partner.
Partner. Okay. Diabolical. Facebook. I'll start with you, John. Facebook.
People.
Addressable.
Addressable.
Yeah, consumers.
Gold mine.
Connector.
Looks like I'm struggling for one word. Silly.
All right. Cross screen. John, television budgets. Television budgets.
Liquid.
Budget.
I'll say increasing.
Okay.
Video.
Flat.
I was going to say video. All right. Yes, please.
My name is Andrew Hertzmark. I am on the board of Captivate Network, and what I was talking to Barry about is how in the sales world, the digital play space needs to be a place not where salesmen end up, but where they want to be.
Hi, I'm Sean Gupta with Time Warner Cable Media, which is Time Warner Cable's advertising division. For the first time, we're working with Cedar Fair Amusement Parks, which has 11 parks in North America, and we are the exclusive ad sales force for their new ad inventory in their theme parks. They've invested millions of dollars and put up TV screens, so when you're waiting in line for a roller coaster, you're now entertained by content that they're bringing into the park. It's a very captive audience that you have, so it's an interesting opportunity for a brand or a marketer to get their brand out there. In addition to that video inventory, they're also selling huge sponsorship packages, just like Six Flags and Disney. So for the first time, brands have the opportunity to reach a very exciting and unique audience of young adults, families, teenagers, college kids, high school kids. So it's pretty fun. Time Warner Cable Media has a huge sales force. It's best in breed, best in class. Our focus is cable advertising, but we have a wide variety and a wide portfolio of products, and we've now added Cedar Fair's out-of-home inventory to that.
So for the last 2 years, when you change ownership from a privately held, very tight-knit family into a massive holding company in a diversified platform, media and technologies is one element of that. I think the Bolloré family saw an opportunity to begin to sit at the table with very large conglomerates of media and media-owned assets. So what really sets us apart is that there's a family ownership. Joe was in the office yesterday, as he said, and I wanted to have some type of point of reference for you today. And ironically, my boss was in the office yesterday, my global chairman, Unique Bolloré, for the budget. We are in the middle of budget planning right now. So Joe got to see firsthand a relationship directly to the top of the organization that I have, which is quite a privilege, and sitting in the chair and operating North America. And because it's family owned, there is a focus and an essence on people, and good people. And that has been my job for the last 2 years, to really find the right people that are adaptable, nimble, flexible, and really have a diversity of qualities, insights, and intelligence. A lot of risk takers, which I think is very important in this business right now, because there isn't a single way to address a problem that media can answer. And we have across North America 8 villages, and we've gone back in time and reinvented the model of a full-service agency living under one address. We have full-service studios and all content development that moves flawlessly across the organization. It doesn't matter what department you are in, it's just part of us. So to me, that's incredibly unique. And I've worked for all of the large holding companies. I see Steve Grubbs over there in my time at Omnicom. And that experience has really given me the ability to sit in this chair today and lead an organization. And I don't take it lightly. It's a life. It's a life.
Place-based media have a real opportunity to triangulate a consumer experience with unique data that we've never seen before. I met with a vendor yet, I don't even know if the store's out there yet, where they can now use something called geotemporal targeting. And this notion of using time and place, because we have devices and we can track them with beacons or whatever technology. How are you utilizing your data and analytics differently now that either represents an opportunity or maybe an impediment to digital place-based media?
Jason Konevsky's out in the audience, who is our head of investments. And I'm calling him out for a reason, is that because we have such a multitude of clients everywhere, I'll use some polarizing client names like Sears, right? They're not going out of business. They're still a very vibrant, vital company, but are changing the trajectory of how they utilize media to understand, SKUs and products and regionality, geographics, and even individualized type of product offerings, whether it's physically in a store or on the Sears website, right? Our data and analytics with a multitude of partners sit with Sears. They have a database of about 66 million. I'm not making that up. It's 66 million active shoppers in the Sears database and Shop Your Way. And the data of understanding, kind of a predictability of what is going to be purchased. Sears still is the #1 seller of Levi's in America, right? And now Levi's are hip and cool because of the San Francisco 49ers and the new stadium. Now there's a surge again in the brand of Levi's. But how do I actually go and purchase Levi's based upon an incredible, complex matrix of consumers across the country? So helping with some data and insights, how we go to market on the big screen, all the way down to the little screen, place-based in the malls. I was flipped out. I don't know if you've read about this, what's happening in the malls at Christmas with what, with DreamWorks is doing and this whole animated Santa village approach. Forget Santa. Digitally come see Santa and virtually come see Santa based on certain malls and the demography of a mall and the stores within a mall. Much more sophisticated way of looking at Santa Claus than, on Hallmark Channel. Not that I love the Hallmark Channel. But what I'm saying is it's a very different equation of customer interaction and brand interaction, place-based. So that's one example, Joe.
So what would you say Madison Avenue doesn't know they're in what business today? Not in the agency business, just...
Yeah, I think the thing is we're still in the ideas business. The trouble is, if you deal with the volume of opportunities that live out there today, it's very difficult to live in the ideas business because you're running around trying to work out where the hell to put spots and dots. So if your mentality is, we've really got to spend a lot of time looking at all this stuff and working it all out, and you're trying to let humans do that, you're going to fail. In the same way, if you go back, when I first arrived in the US 10 years ago, Goldman Sachs trader might be able to handle 70 stocks, maybe. Now his machine runs thousands of stocks and iterates it thousands of times a day. That was just totally impossible. So what we want to try and do is automate as much as we can of the bottom of the pyramid. And I keep thinking about media as a pyramid. In that, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you happen to be Anheuser-Busch, who probably at the top of their media pyramid is Super Bowl. Easy way of defining it for me is a media property around which you're prepared to build a marketing program. And then down the bottom of it is, I don't know, be careful here, but Oprah Winfrey Network at 3 a.m. in the morning. I mean, there's no one from Oprah Winfrey Network. Anyway, Oprah Winfrey at 3. It really is genuinely, and there's just an atomized mass of opportunities in there, but it's like a needle in a haystack. And people aren't very good at being able to take that volume of information and deal with it. Trouble is, that's how we set up. So what we said was, what you want to do, if you possibly can, is remove people from the bottom part of the equation when you're dealing with things that you're not going to be building marketing programs around. Automate the hell out of that, because machines actually are way, way better at understanding that, mathematics, than they are people trying to do that work. And yet let the people spend time doing the things that are really adding value. Because I do think creativity, really big ideas, do transform brands in ways that you can't do through machinery and engineering. But the machine and engineering is important to give people time to be able to do the other things. And that's, I think, where we're starting to see a big change. Because, you know, how many people come into the industry, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with their new degree, only to find themselves doing spotlight tagging for the next 6 months, and they leave, they get the hell out. Because honestly, it's a drag. I mean, you know, I asked the question numerous times, you know, how many people in the room do spreadsheets, media plans on spreadsheets, and everyone puts their hand up. And I said, well, okay, so how many spreadsheets do you do a year? I don't know how many Sears produce a year, but I bet it's thousands. I know we produce thousands of spreadsheets, all produced on Excel, all produced individually, all produced on a desktop. That's insane. And yet that's what kids are doing when they come to the business. So the idea of being a creative business is kind of bled out of them right at the beginning. It's bleached away from them by the drudgery of some of the work they have to do. If you could remove all of that, I think you'd attract much smarter, brighter people because they want to do brighter work. And it would also mean that you would hold on to people that really want to do interesting things rather than lose them because they say, hey, I'm out of here.
And Coca-Cola. Well, thank you for having me, Greg, and hello, everyone. I think I would just define mobile really simply as a lifestyle. I don't look at it as a platform. It's what it is, and we're all walking around and we're experiencing mobile day in and day out. Our lifestyles are mobile. Millennials are mobile. So I don't really look at it from a platform standpoint or even a channel standpoint. It's there. And I think that's where we should all start just embracing the fact that everything's mobile. There is no more, you know, the same way that offline and online those things are blurred, there is no more mobile channel versus non-mobile.
Thank you. So David, the industry often likes to bucket things, and when I say the industry, that's Wall Street likes to look at numbers by different channels. So from your perspective and from a research perspective across one of the biggest agencies in the US, when you're looking at mobile, do you encompass tablets and smartwatches and smart goggles? Where does it start and end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy for the industry and in all sides to look at it in buckets, and I think the reality is that's not how people see it, and that's not how people live their lives, as Anthony said. So, you know, we absolutely have to stop thinking about it that way. You know, when we think about mobile platforms, you know, where we were a few years ago versus where we are today with, you know, the new devices, the smart watches, everything else that's going on, the lines have definitely blurred, and I think anything that can, you know, give an opportunity to connect with people from a location-based perspective, wherever they are, I think needs to fall into that bucket of mobile. And I also think, you know, even just that sort of delineation that we still talk about from there's digital and there's this other thing called mobile. You know, you think about the stats that you just listed, they are one and the same. They are together. We just need to be thinking about all the different platforms from a consumer-centric way and stop thinking about the mobile device or the tablet. It is all just, you know, as consumers see it, these are just things they use to live their lives. And I think we need to improve that side. Yeah, I think there's a number of challenges and obstacles. And that being said, I think the dollars are moving, maybe not as quickly as everyone would like, but they are happening. Anytime you're moving money, I mean, generally speaking, marketers' budgets are fairly fixed, flat. So it's not like there's this magical pool of new money that's just coming into the marketplace. So it's got to come from some. Yeah, it would be great if that was the case. But so you're always talking about doing something that you know and you feel comfortable with, that has proven results, to moving it into somewhere new. And that can be a challenge, especially when you've never done it before and you don't know how it's going to work and you don't know what it means when I've moved money from over here that I feel really confident about and everyone thinks is great to somewhere else. And I think that there is that. I think the industry and DPAA has done a great job in terms of trying to bring standardized measurement to this industry. Without that, because you have measurement doesn't mean you will get the money, but I can tell you without it, you won't. And we just need to continue to build that and drive that. And I think the other thing is, how do we think about, the integration of all the pieces? The integration of how do we connect a mobile device-based opportunity, social on a mobile, to a different screen, and how do we start to connect those dots? Because I think the more we can integrate and connect, the less resistance there will be to evolving and sort of moving money a little more quickly.
Heard, but just in the past 24, 48 hours, Kraft has said that 75 to 85% of their data, they are saying we're not going to use it because it's fraudulent. But Shane, what do you have?
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone's fairly familiar that WPP, our Group M specifically, has taken a fairly strong stance on viewability and trading against viewability, and MEC is very much at the forefront of changing how we build our relationships with our media partners.
Is that with WPP and Xaxis together?
The whole group, right? The whole group is all about viewability, and we're moving to 100% viewable, which is higher than the industry standard.
So does that mean that you're only going to pay for something that's 100%?
Only going to pay for something that's 100% in view.
Good. How difficult is that to be? That's great.
Yeah, the advertiser was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a miss, right? I mean, if you're not changing how you're looking at your creative and that you're actually putting your brand slogan right there on the front, or your product or something that catches the eye of the consumer.
Very key point. We actually spoke earlier, Shane, about how with all the creativity in media, the majority of creatives are spending their time with 30s and banners and looking at it in the same way. Did you have a...
No, I was just saying that from that perspective, I always recommend that persistent, like branding. That's right there, so you can always see it.
The topic that I was charged to talk about was how technology is forever changing media habits. And I don't think those of you sitting here need to really understand or need me to give you a tutorial on how media is forever changing, how technology is forever changing media habits. It's also forever changing media buying and planning habits. It's forever changing advertising habits. It's forever changing marketing habits. It's forever changing the consumer. Not just their habits, but the consumer themselves. And it's changing the reality that we all live in, and that's what you're hearing about here today. But I also want to share with you why I'm bullish on media and why I believe that media, advertising, marketing remain strong, will continue to remain strong, and even the engine that drives all advertising, television, I believe, will continue to be strong for a variety of reasons that I want to share with you. I talk about the fundamental culture of our business is changing. This is where we've been, and this is not just an indication of what a boardroom looks like, it's what businesses look like. And as we move forward into the future, business looks very different. The culture that we're all operating in is changing dramatically. We are looking at an industry, the advertising industry, the media industry, where 60 to 70% of the junior and mid-level management is composed of women. And so over the next decade, it's inevitable that women will rise to the top and begin taking the C-suite jobs. The women 18 to 34 are actually paid more. Single, unmarried, childless women, 18 to 34, earning 18% more on average than single, childless men, 18 to 34. We're seeing dramatic cultural shifts, and this is driving a lot of the shifts that we see, not just technology-driven, but culturally driven. And marketers are looking at communicating with these consumers in very different ways. 10 years ago, we never heard of these companies, most of these companies. And over the next 10 years, there will be emerging new companies that will be driving our future and that we'll need to understand and be aware of and focus on. Every minute of every day, consumers' media habits are radically different than they were last year, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and certainly dramatically different than they were 20 years ago. When we look at what's happening every minute of every day, we're seeing far more engaged consumers in digital transactions. And reaching these consumers is becoming more and more difficult, which is why marketers are struggling, which is why we saw a couple people here say media companies are terrified and scared. In fact, I don't believe they're terrified or scared. I think they're responding, and I think for the most part, the media and advertising industry is responding well. We're dealing with some real fundamentals, but what I want to share with you are not these fundamentals that you already know. More video viewing opportunities, more media measurement options, multi-platform integration, programmatic and automated buying. You heard about for a full hour that could have gone easily all day. It could have been focused much more on how DPAA members can take advantage of this. And I know the DPAA has been working hard to build programmatic solutions. This is going to continue. Right now, it represents between 20 and 30% of all media buying, according to the major agency holding companies. And that number will only continue to grow. And their focus on arbitrage and transparency issues, as we hear from Erwin Gottlieb at WPP, is continuing to be a major issue and revenue generator for the industry. And I'm going to focus on marketing budgets shifting from below to above the line. And we're not going to talk about data and databases, but they are powering growth and they're hugely important to the issue. But it's not just the amount of data we have, which is growing by the exabyte every year. Huge amounts of data. It's how we use that data, how we analyze that data, how we import that data into our day-to-day decision-making in a meaningful and effective way. And that's an increasing challenge for the industry that the industry is not yet quite stepping up to. The three most important positive trends, not just for digital out-of-home video, but for the full advertising and marketing business, that I want to spend a little bit of time with you today talking about is the Internet of Things, shopper marketing, and the expansion of video screens, both inside and outside the home. The Internet of Things, just a couple of years ago, we didn't really hear much about. But today it's a $2 trillion business, $2 trillion. And by the end of this decade, the Internet of Things will represent a $14 to $16 trillion industry. Put that in context, all marketing expenditures in the United States represents about $600 billion. We're talking about a $14 to $16 trillion industry called the Internet of Things. What is the Internet of Things? Well, it's a lot of things, but one thing that certainly affects your business is wearables. Wearables will soon be purchasing the smartwatches. There are smartwatches being built that don't necessarily need to tie in, but we're also carrying wearables now. We're carrying credit cards that can be scanned. We're carrying credit cards that can be read. We're carrying phones with payment systems. Our cars are increasingly invested in, our auto manufacturers are increasingly invested in the connected car. It's considered by the automotive industry to be the single most important seller for new automobiles over the next decade. The connected car is a huge business for the out-of-home advertising industry. It creates a captive audience, it creates a complete new audience, and it's just one more segment of a fast-growing industry. The connected car will talk to its neighboring cars. It's talking to the roads. It's talking to billboards. And we've seen in the industry, we've seen at the airport at Heathrow, we see billboards talking to airplanes and airplanes communicating with the billboards that connect to the message. This is all the Internet of Things. It's a massive business, and it's one that's driving the growth of the digital place-based advertising business as well. So as we look at the next major trend, it's shopper marketing. And I can't stress enough the importance of understanding shopper marketing and its relevance for every single media company, every media agency, every ad agency, every marketer. Shopper marketing is the single greatest spur of growth for advertising over the next decade. Mobile commerce is growing exponentially. Most importantly, 100% of the growth of advertising will come from shopper marketing over the next decade. 100% of the growth of your businesses will come from shopper marketing. Shopper marketing typically represents, it's also called below the line. It includes consumer sales promotion, trade promotion, direct marketing, event marketing, PR, social. These are all typically below the line budgets, and they represent on average 70% of the total marketing communication budget. And if we talk to the brand managers who are here, I think they'll tell you that the vast majority of their personal time is invested in below the line budgets, and much less time traditionally invested in advertising. The reality, because of digital, is that the opportunities for traditional media companies and emerging media companies to tap into promotional budgets that drive the consumer to take action, as opposed to just generating reach and awareness, is a huge opportunity. And digital is driving that. And the digital out-of-home industry is a place that's essential for that, as we've heard this morning. By 2020, there'll be an additional $100 billion available to media partners from below the line budgets. If you look at marketing spend, it's flat between now and 2020. If you look at advertising spend, it's growing about 3 to 5% a year between now and 2020. 100% of that growth is coming from below to above the line, which this chart reflects. The third category, something that's preaching to the choir here, is the increased focus on video and the growing number of video screens that are available in the home. This is the change from just a few years ago, when there were 100 companies in the video business in 19 different buckets, if you will, or categories. Today, according to Terry Kawaja at Luma Partners, there's 400 companies, 36 buckets. So the amount of competition is intensifying. The opportunities and the dollars available are growing as well. Demand for total video advertising, including network TV, on down to including video in mobile, video online, digital place-based video, is growing an average 4.5% a year. That's solid growth in a market that's flat. Out-of-home advertising, growing 4.5% a year. Digital place-based video advertising growing 11.2% a year. You are one of the fastest growing segments, not just of the advertising business, but of the total marketing communications budget. It's a good business to be in right now. And digital is driving that growth. So as we look at the future, as we look ahead, what are some of the things that we're confronting, that we're dealing with? What are our challenges? Video usage increasing inside and outside the home, you understand. Viewers embracing over the top, making advertisers pay more attention to where they reach their consumers, as it's becoming more and more challenging to reach them in traditional legacy media. I remember when I started out in the television business, it was impossible to sell a rating below a 3 rating. There's more multitasking by viewers, meaning that advertisers need to connect with people not just across multiple screens, but across multiple activities that they're engaging in throughout their lives. Again, this lends itself to the strengths of the out-of-home digital place-based medium. Reach is becoming more automotive. In the past, 95% of all ad dollars were invested in achieving Awareness, retention, interest through reach. And the job of advertising was not to drive sales, it was not to motivate, it was not to persuade, it was to drive awareness through reach. Well, when we talk about programmatic, reach is moving into the programmatic field, which means media sellers, agencies need to find ways to become more creative, more engaged in the creative process, more engaged in tapping into those below-the-line relationships and budgets, and those are the success stories that we've been hearing about today. Non-stop growth for programmatic, more attention being paid to the live experience, to the out-of-home experience, to sports, to how do you engage with the consumer when they're engaged in things they're passionate about. Helping this industry is also the ability to address messaging, activation messages to specific groups of consumers when they're taking specific action, and that means that beacon advertising and the Internet of Things is a hugely important opportunity for this industry. And finally, and again I come back to the point, the single greatest growth opportunity for our industry is that content owners will be looking to connect their content and associate it with their consumers and allow marketers to tap in to those audiences through their content. So as importantly as it is to work on the distribution, to work on the addressability, the data, it's also important for the industry to work on its content and to find content solutions and to also be in the content business, because that's where marketers will be looking to associate. And that's my fast version. Thank you for listening. There are slower versions.